everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from March 5th, 2021, and I'm recording this on September 3rd, 2021. I give you the dates so that you know when this information is actually most relevant, because the comic market is always moving and changing. We're looking back at the hot comics from the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Key Collector puts out a list of 20, Tom picks his 10. So I'm looking at those two lists of 10 books each to see what's happened with those books. These were the hot books of the moment 6 months ago. How are they doing? How have they done since? Would you have been better off being patient? Have they continued to trend up? We got 16 books to talk about this week, so let's get into the list. First up, we have The Walking Dead, number 177. This is the first appearance of Mercer, who was basically coming to the show for the first time during the season finale way back then. He was going to be making his first appearance on the show, so that's why this book hit the list. But this was one of those Tom Key Collector books that really didn't maybe deserve to be on the list. It had jumped up to $9 on average for a raw copy. There's a big, huge increase in sales, but now it's a $5 to $15 book. 9.8s are going for just $60. I guess it's been worth it, but how hot was it really if it was only going for basically double cover? But anyway, this book was our first book on the list. Next up, we have G.I. Joe number 32, back for a second week in a row. Basically, this is the first appearance of Lady J, and there was an announcement that there was potentially going to be an Amazon Prime show related to this character. Back then, raw copies were going for $50. 9.8 was hitting $400. Now, raw copies are $5 to $35. 9.8s are $250 to $280. So this has definitely been a bit of a trap. There were a couple of outlier sales on the raw side that went for like $75 and $125 in the last couple of weeks. But overall, this book is consistently in a $5 to $35 range. Depending on condition, those two sales don't make a lot of sense, and this has been definitely a trap over the last 6 months. Next, we have our only cover kind of this week, and that is Something Is Killing the Children, number 15. The Zoolache variant that was limited to 550 copies. This was a store exclusive. It's a cool cover, hot series, and generally for Something's Killing the Children, that has been straight cash all the time, which is what I predicted for this one. Back then it was going for $120 raw at release. Now it's $90 to $100, 9.8, so only running $150 to $200. So this has been actually a bit of an I'll be back. It's actually down a little bit. So this was the end of the initial kind of run before they went on hiatus a little bit. Really cool cover, but this is buck the Something Is Killing the Children trend. This has actually kind of come back a little bit. Still really good value for a book this old and that's, kind of a store exclusive, but just hasn't, exploded like most everything else related to this series. So next we're going to move into Comic Buzz, which we got a bunch of books in that category this week. Although I think this one actually should have been Marvel thing, but anyway, my first one is New Mutants number 98, the first appearance of Deadpool. This hit the list like a lot of Marvel keys. This was jumping back in the spring. 9.8 was up to $2,000 to $2,700 back then. Now it's a $1,700 to $1,900 book, so it has come back considerably. Raw copies are running at $250 to $500. So this is a bit of an I'll be back, a bit down over the 6 month period overall. Long term, this is a straight cash book, but definitely down a little bit from what it was back in the spring there for a while. I will say you'll notice some sales if you look on eBay that were significantly higher than this. 9.8 going for $35 to $4,000. Those are newsstand copies, so there's definitely a difference between the newsstand are about double of what the regular direct editions go for. Next, we have Ultimate Fallout 4, first appearance of Miles. This had been, we've talked about this, and this was on the list last week? I forget now, but anyway, it was sitting around $1,000 back in December for a 9.8. And then by the beginning of March, it was up to 9.8s were up to $2,600. 9.6s were going for $1,000. Now it's a $750 to $1,100 book for a raw copy. Think about the difference in raw prices when you think about this and that New Mutants. 9.8 though is sitting around $2,300 to $2,600. So this one has been pretty steady over the last 6 months. Definitely a little bit of an I'll be back. You could have done a little better than when it was peaking back there in the spring, but if you're patient and looking for sales, but definitely a long-term straight cash book and definitely a very valuable book. Next, we have Defenders number 112, the first appearance of Power Princess, who's one of the Squadron Supreme, kind of the Marvel's little takeoff on Wonder Woman. And basically, we got solicitations that this character was coming back as part of Heroes Reborn, and that one of the covers where they're reintroducing was this art germ cover that everybody was going nuts over. That basically looked like it looks like Wonder Woman with a slightly different costume. But anyway, people were going nuts for that cover. So her first appearance itself also jumped. Raw copies were going for $40. Now it's going for $5 to $20. I said this was a trap. It wasn't really anything here to sustain. I don't think that Heroes Reborn series mounted to much. So yeah, it's $5 to $20 book. Definitely down. Not a lot of sustained interest in this particular character. Really, I think the only one of those Squadron Supreme characters that's really ever carried much interest is Hyperion. But yeah, the rest of these have never amounted to much. Next, we have Battle Chasers Prelude from 1998, the first Battle Chasers book. For those that weren't around back then, this was a big deal back in the day. And like when it was coming out, and then it got delayed and delayed, and we only ever got 9 issues. The story never finished. The artist went off to do other things and gaming and other things, and he never finished it. Well, we got an announcement that number 10 was finally going to be coming out, that he was finally going to start making it again after 20 years. Or there was at least rumors that it was coming back, caused raw prices for this Prelude to jump all the way up to $15. It's still setting $5 to $20. Most of the sales are kind of 10 to 15-ish. So it's been a bit of an I'll be back. Been pretty steady though over the 6 months. Haven't heard any other news, so who knows when or if we'll ever get the finish of that story. I actually really enjoyed that story back in the day. I was hooked and then it disappeared. So it was kind of a fantasy world that I actually enjoyed. We'll see if we ever get any more of it. Next, we have Batman number 106. The first cameo appearance of Miracle Molly. She got a lot of hype for this character, and we got a cameo here in 106 we weren't necessarily expecting. Back then, raw copies were going for 10. Now they're 10 to 15, 9.8s are 60 to 100. So it's been pretty worth it for this first 6 months. I know there was a lot of grumbling about this when it came out and this character, and people were deciding she was trash based on her appearance and everything else. But it's going for double cover. We'll see. We'll see if this character is really used after the Tinian run coming to an end kind of abruptly here pretty soon. We'll see what happens with the next writers and stuff. So maybe this character has no legs, or maybe she does. So we'll see. Next, we have Brzrkr, number 1, the Mark Brooks one per store. This is the Keanu Reeves book and property. It was kind of really hot when it was coming out. People were pumped about this. Raw copies were hitting $50 of this one per store variant. And this one has continued to go up compared to then. It's 50 to 100 right now for a raw copy. 9.8s are running 115 to 300. So over the 6 month period, it's up. It's been straight cash, but I will say it's actually down from where it peaked. If you look over since basically the beginning of July, this book has been steadily dropping with successive sales. It's been slowly stepping down from actually the height it's reached. So it is actually coming back down, even though it's still higher than it was 6 months ago when it first came out. Next, we have Eniac, number 1. This is the bad idea hot indie book of the moment back in the spring. These were pretty limited and hard to get. Raw copies right out the gate were going for $150. I was like, I'll be back. And this actually turned into a trap. Now it's a $40 to $50 book. A 9.8 only goes for $80 to $120, so less than what raw copies were going for back in the spring. Yeah, it was low print, but there doesn't appear to have been much story that people really stayed interested in. It just hasn't helped. I mean, it's got big value still for brand new book, just not near what people were specking on it when it first came out. Next, we are going to have 3 books that are all related to basically an announcement that came out that Michael B. Jordan was working with Warner Brothers to do a Black Superman story. We didn't know what that was going to be back then, so people were specking on the 2 comic book Black Supermen. First up, we have Earth 2, number 19, the first appearance of Val Zod, who was is a black version of Superman from Earth 2. Raw copies for this book jumped up to $50. The 9.8 was going for $200. Raw copies now are $50 to $100. 9.8s are actually up $500 to $600. But part of this is because, call this and I'll be back, but basically it came out, everybody thought it was going to be based on the description, thought, oh, they were doing Calvin Ellis, who's the next one we're going to talk about. And then there were rumors a few months later that it was actually going to be a black version of Kal-El. They were just going to cast a black actor as Superman we all know that's been in the movies a bunch of times. They were just going to make Kal-El black. And then the most recent news has been that no, it's going to be Val Zod, and that Michael Jordan's still attached. So that's why this book is actually was down and then it's back up. So it has been straight cast for the 6 months, but this has been kind of a strange ride for this particular book and the next 2 we're going to talk about. Next up is Final Crisis number 7, first appearance of Calvin Ellis, President Superman from Earth 23. Back then, raw copies of this were $100, 9.8 for $600. This is the book people were betting on back then. Raw now are $30 to $80, 9.8s are $150 to $300. So this book has come way back down. Definitely turned into a bit of a trap. And his second appearance, first cover, as our next book, Action Comics number 9. Another, like I said, second appearance of Calvin Ellis. This book was $50 raw back then. 9.8 was hitting $500. Now it's a $15 to $30 book. 9.8's $200 to $300. Another one that's kind of turned into a bit of a trap. We still don't know for sure where this is going. I mean, this has all been reports and rumors, and it's changed a couple different times. So we'll see what eventually happens here, which of these characters we actually get. But that's what all this speculation has been about. Last 3 books are all Disney Plus related, related to Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. First up, we have Captain America number 6, first appearance of the Winter Soldier, the Bucky variant. Back then, this book was hitting an all-time high of $600 to $650 for 9.8. Now it's a $75 to $125 book raw, $450 to $500 for a 9.8. I said straight cash on this one. I really wasn't thinking. We've seen this pretty good trend is that they overspike. Like the books hit new floors after these shows have kind of like establish themselves at new levels, but there tends to be an overspike during the show that it is not quite able to sustain. This one is no different. It's down, and it's been a bit of an I'll be back. So next we have Captain America number 117, first appearance of Falcon. Now this is an older book, and this was hitting all-time highs across all grades. 9.0 at 2,200, 5.5 at 500. Now 9.0 costs you about $18. 5.5 is still in that $500 to $600 range. Raw copies are cost you $200 to $800 depending on condition. So another one this one I'll call steady as opposed to down and then I'll be back. This is kind of steady and worth it for the Falcon book. We do know he's going to continue to play for Captain America going forward, like 4 movies at least. I think they signed him on 4 or something. So probably not all of those will be Captain America movies. But anyway, we know we're getting Anthony Mackie for a while, and this is going to continue. So this book is held a little better than the Winter Soldier, but we'll see where it goes from here. So, and then last is West Coast Avengers number 45, second week in a row. This was on the list after that reveal. This is the first appearance of the White Vision. Raw copies back then were up to $125. 9.8s were actually about the same as they were last week when it hit the list at $1,000 to $1,500. Now raw copy will cost you $25 to $80. 9.8s are going to cost you $600 to $900. Still way up from what it was prior to the show, but way down from where it peaked during the show. So this one definitely turned into a trap if you were buying it at the peak. So that's this week's list. Mostly down again. This is kind of second or third week in a row where the numbers of that you'll see on my wrap-up slide more represent what historically we've gotten, but not what we've seen over the last year or so, where more books have held or gone up. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.